An iterable is an object that can hand back an iterator when Python calls iter on it. That's a complete definition. The informal answers in common use are a list, anything that can be looped, or a thing with items inside it. Each is close enough to write working code and imprecise enough to produce failures that return no error and no log entry. Two terms inside that definition need plain English before the definition carries any weight. Looping, also called iterating, means walking through a group of values one at a time in order. One value is taken, work is done with it, and then the next value is taken, and this repeats until no values remain. Nothing jumps directly to item 5, and nothing requires the whole group to exist in memory at once. An iterator is the object that performs that walk. It holds the position it has reached. It produces the next value on request, and it reports when no values remain. Functionally, it's a cursor over a sequence of values. That produces two roles. One object supplies the cursor, the other object is the cursor. The object that supplies it is the iterable. One idea underlies the rest of this material. A for loop is not a language feature that lists happen to support. It is one function call, a series of method calls, and one exception used as a stop signal. Those three pieces are the entire mechanism, and they're the reason objects as different as a list and a network stream loop identically. The loop itself is the starting point, because the rest of the protocol follows directly from what the interpreter does with the statement for X in thing. On screen is one loop written twice. The first version is source code. The second version is the same behavior stated explicitly. Python calls iter on the list to obtain an iterator. It calls next on that iterator to retrieve one value per pass. It exits when next raises StopIteration. The for statement catches that exception internally, which is why loop code never contains a try block for it. 3 steps in fixed order. First, iter is called on the object to request an iterator. Second, next is called on that iterator to retrieve a single value. Third, the loop terminates when StopIteration is raised, and the exception is discarded. The loop variable is bound to whatever next returned on that pass. 3 things are absent from that sequence: an index, a length, and random access. Nothing in the protocol requires the values to exist before the loop begins. That absence is what allows this table. A list holds value in memory. A dict walks an insertion-ordered hash table and produces keys. A range computes integers arithmetically as they're requested. A file object reads from disk and buffers and produces 1 line per pass. A generator executes a function body in segments. The storage mechanisms have nothing in common. The interface above them is identical. So to state this precisely, an iterable is any object that can hand back an iterator when Python calls iter on it. The definition is behavioral rather than structural. It describes what the object does when asked, not what the object contains. That's what allows an empty object, an infinite object, and a live network stream to qualify as iterables, while none of them holds a finished collection. The iteration protocol consists of 2 dunder methods and 1 exception. The first method is dunder iter. Its sole requirement is to return an object that defines dunder next. That returned object is the iterator. It may be a newly constructed object, a generator, or in specific cases, the same object dunder iter was called on. Every for loop comprehension, unpacking expression, and value-consuming built-in calls iter first. If dunder iter returns an object without dunder next, Python raises type error at the point the loop begins, not at class definition. This is the protocol executed manually at the prompt. Calling iter on a list returns a list iterator object. Each call to next advances 1 position and returns 1 value. After the 3rd value, the iterator is exhausted, so the 4th call raises StopIteration. 1 detail carries the concept. The list is unchanged. It still contains 3 items: the iterator advanced and the iterator ran out. The second method is dunder next. It returns the next value or raises StopIteration when no values remain. Position is stored in the iterator and never in the loop, which is why 2 loops over the same list do not interfere with each other. Once an iterator raises StopIteration, a correctly implemented iterator continues raising it on every subsequent call. Exhaustion is permanent. StopIteration is a control signal, not an error condition. The next built-in accepts an optional second argument. That argument converts exhaustion into a return value rather than an exception. An empty iterator returns the supplied default. This is the standard method for retrieving a first value from a source that may contain none. The design choice, an alternative protocol, would supply a hasNext method, which requires every source to determine in advance whether another value exists. A socket, a log file still being written, or a computed sequence frequently cannot answer that without generating the value first. An exception moves the report to the moment exhaustion occurs. Linked becomes optional, look-ahead becomes optional, and infinite sources become legal because an infinite iterator never raises. This table separates the two categories by method. A list defines dunder iter and returns a new iterator on each call, but defines no dunder next. The object returned by iter defines both. So do a generator expression, a file object, and the object returned by zip. An iterator is an iterable that also implements its own advancement. The distinction between the two accounts for a category of failures in which nothing raises, nothing is logged, and the result is empty. Every iterator is an iterable. The reverse doesn't hold, though. A list is a container that can be read repeatedly. An iterator is a one-way cursor that is consumed as it advances. Identity distinguishes them. Calling iter on a list returns a different object, so the identity comparison is false. Calling iter on an iterator returns the same object, so the comparison is true. And that comparison is the complete test. On screen, you can also see the consequence of storing position in the iterator. Two cursors over one list each begin at the start and advance independently. The self-returning rule is small and its consequences are large. Because an iterator returns itself from dunder iter, it can be supplied anywhere an iterable is accepted. That's why looping over a file works despite a file object already being a cursor. It's also why passing an iterator into a helpful function consumes it. The helper loops it, the helper drains it, and the original reference now yields nothing. A function that accepts an iterable and requires two passes must copy it first. Here this is the failure in its standard form. Map returns an iterator. The first call to list retrieves every value from it. The second call receives an exhausted iterator and returns an empty list. The zip example produces the same result as a count, 3, then 0. No exception is raised and no warning is emitted. If that count feeds a threshold check or a report, the output is silently wrong. Two categories cover every case. Reusable iterables hold or regenerate their values, and each call to iter produces a fresh cursor. Lists, tuples, dict, sets, strings, ranges, and any class whose dunder iter constructs a new iterator. One-shot iterators carry a position and cannot rewind. Generators, generator expressions, file objects, and the objects returned by map, filter, zip, enumerate, and reversed. This reference applies the split, including the case that is frequently misclassified. Dictionary views are reusable. Looping dict items twice produces the pairs twice, and the view remains live against the dict rather than holding a snapshot. 3 constructions make a class iterable. One of them is the default choice. That default is a generator dunder iter. The method is written with yield and no other method is required. Passing a countdown instance to list twice produces the same 3 values on both calls. And for the mechanism, calling a generator function does not execute the body. It returns a new generator object, and that object already implements dunder next, so it satisfies the iterator contract without a second class. Each call to iter enters the function again with fresh local state. The local variables inside the generator replace the position bookkeeping that would otherwise be written by hand, which removes any index attribute to reset and any state to corrupt. The explicit 2-class form appears throughout the standard library and third-party code, and it makes the design visible. Dec holds the cards. Dec iter holds a position. The dunder iter method on dec returns a new dec iterator on every call. The iterator returns itself from dunder iter, and its dunder next raises stop iteration once the index passes the end. Container and cursor are separate objects. That separation is the reason the container remains reusable. Collapsing both roles into a single class produces the result on screen. The class returns self from dunder iter and tracks its own index. The first pass returns both cards. The second pass returns an empty list because the object is the cursor and the cursor is spent. Selection between the designs depends on what's being modeled. A collection intended for repeated loops takes the generator dunder iter. A cursor intended to be passed between functions and advanced one value at a time takes an explicit iterator class. Additional behavior. such as a peek method or a buffer, requires the explicit class to hold it. A stream consumed exactly once is best expressed as a plain generator function, because one-shot semantics are then visible in the signature. The third construction is one to recognize rather than write. The class on screen defines no dunder iter. It defines dunder getitem, and the for loop executes correctly. And this is the old sequence protocol, and it remains in the language. When iter finds no dunder iter, it looks for dunder getitem and constructs an iterator that requests index 0, index 1, index 2, and upward. The loop ends when dunder getitem raises index error. The exception type is strict. A key error raised in that position does not end the loop, it propagates. New code should define dunder iter, and existing code that iterates through dunder getitem should be recognized on site. This behavior has a direct consequence for type checks. The iterable abstract base class tests for dunder iter and nothing else. The alphabet class therefore returns false against iterable, and then loops correctly when passed to list. The same output shows the standard pairings. A list is iterable and not iterator, and the object returned by iter is both. When the question is whether a loop over an object will succeed, the reliable test is a call to iter inside a try-block catching type error. That's the operation a for loop performs, so the result always matches loop behavior. The abstract base class suits annotations, dispatch, and library code that should require declared dunder iter, and is the form static type checkers interpret. The iter call in a try block suits runtime questions about behavior, including legacy classes that loop through dunder getitem. The two disagree on exactly one category of object, and that category is the reason to know both. The protocol accounts for a large portion of the standard library's design. These built-ins return iterators rather than lists. Map, filter, zip, enumerate, reserved, and an open file object. None performs work at the point of the call. Work occurs when something calls next. A file object is its own iterator, so iter on a file returns the same object. Looping it reads the file in buffers and produces one line per pass. That's why a for loop over a 20 gigabyte log file is routine, while calling read on that same file is not. Laziness produces 3 measurable effects. An eager pipeline constructs a full list at every stage, so peak memory equals the size of the largest stage. A lazy pipeline moves a single value through every stage before the next value is retrieved, so memory stays constant regardless of input size. Early exit becomes inexpensive. Stopping at 10 matches means the remainder of the input is never read. Infinite sources become usable, because no stage ever requests a complete sequence. The code applies all 3. A file, a generator expression that strips each line, a second generator expression that keeps only error lines, and is sliced to limit the result to 10. 3 stages, 1 line of text in memory at a time, and the file read terminates at the 10th match. Itertools is built entirely on the protocol. iSlice slices a stream without materializing it. Batched group values into fixed size tuples. Chain joins iterables end to end. Pairwise produces each consecutive pair. T splits one iterator into 2 independent iterators. Each function accepts an iterable and returns an iterator, which is the property that allows them to be composed without adapters. Range demonstrates the storage point numerically. A range over 1 million integers reports 48 bytes. The equivalent list reports approximately 8 megabytes. The values are identical and one of the 2 objects stores none of them. Range is also a useful special case, because it is an iterable, not an iterator. It can be looped repeatedly and restarts each time. It supports indexing, slicing, and len, because it is a full sequence type. Membership testing against integers is arithmetic rather than a scan, so the in operator runs in constant time regardless of range size. It's the clearest demonstration that iterability requires no stored data. A single dunder iter method connects a class to everything you see here. Starred, unpacking, sorted, max, any, dict construction from pairs, and value spreading inside a list literal. Each of those calls iter internally. The full surface area appears in this table. The for statement comprehensions tuple unpacking, star args at a call site, the in operator when no dunder contains is defined, the aggregate built-ins, the container constructors, and yield from. 1 method implementation, and all of it applies. 5 failures account for the majority of iteration bugs. Each is a direct consequence of treating an iterator as a container. The first involves length and repeated consumption. Calling len on a generator raises type error. Calling sum on it returns 30. Calling sum on it a second time returns 0. Len requires dunderlen, which iterators do not define and frequently cannot define, because an iterator may not know how many values remain. Counting a one-shot iterator requires consuming it, and consuming it destroys it. Code that needs both the count and the values must materialize once with list and operate on the result. The materialization point should be a deliberate decision rather than something discovered during debugging. The second involves text. Strings satisfy the protocol, and walking through one produces one-character strings. Any generic test for whether an object is a collection returns true for a string. This flattened function places the guard correctly. String and bytes are checked before the general iterable branch. Without that guard, the string ab is split into 2 values. And single characters recurse until the stack is exhausted, because walking through a one-character string produces that same one-character string. The same failure appears in zip, in chain, and in argument unpacking, wherever a single string is supplied, and where a list of strings was expected. The correction is consistent. Handle text explicitly before handling iterables generically. The third involves modification during a loop. A list iterator holds an index. Removing the item at position 0 shifts every remaining value 1 position left, while the iterator still advances to position 1, so an element is skipped entirely. The output confirms it. The first version leaves B in the list. The comprehension version builds a new list rather than modifying the list being read, and produces the correct result. Dict and sets enforce this more strictly than lists. Changing the size of a dict while a loop is running over it raises runtime error, which is a better failure mode than silently skipping an element. When in-place modification is required, the loop should run over a snapshot produced by wrapping the source in list. The fourth involves generators. A stop iteration that escapes a generator body is converted into a runtime error. Before that conversion was introduced, calling next directly inside a generator and allowing it to run out ended the outer loop silently and concealed the defect. The correction is to catch stop iteration around a bare next call and return. The fifth item is a tool rather than a defect. The 2-argument form of iter accepts a callable and a sentinel value, then calls that function repeatedly until the return value equals the sentinel. Reading a binary file in fixed-size chunks becomes an ordinary for loop, as does reading commands until a specific input arrives. So we're about at the end of the video. Let's condense this down as a quick recap. An iterable returns an iterator from iter. An iterator defines dunder next and returns itself from dunder iter. A loop ends when stop iteration is raised. An object can be looped twice only if it's not an iterator. A class becomes iterable through dunder iter, usually written as a generator. Without dunder iter, Python falls back to dunder getitem from index 0 until index error. The behavioral test is a call to tier inside a try block catching type error. Laziness provides constant memory, inexpensive early exit, and support for infinite sources. So an iterable hands out an iterator, and an iterator hands out values until it raises stop iteration. That statement applies to lists, files, generators, ranges, dict views, and every class built on the protocol. Objects designed around the protocol integrate with the entire language. So if you found this helpful, please subscribe.